You're not just fighting humans, you're contending with the very essence of Deathworld itself. As Sergeant Keshrin landed on the blue planet, the weight of his commander's words echoed in his mind. The Luthor Collective had conquered countless worlds, and Earth was next on their list. Their briefings assured them that they faced primitive species with scattered defenses and rudimentary technology. This was meant to be a straightforward mission. But as the drop ships breached the atmosphere, an unsettling feeling gnawed at Keshrin. Sergeant Keshrin wasn't just a soldier, he was a product of the Collective's rigorous training and endless warfare. Born on the metallic hive world of Krythor, he had witnessed the fall of his home city to rebel forces. The memory of flames consuming his childhood home haunted him, fueling a resolve to never be vulnerable again. His rise through the ranks was swift, earning him the respect of his comrades and the fear of his enemies. His squad consisted of diverse warriors, each with their own pasts. Mirage, the youngest, had once been a tech prodigy, mastering Luthor technology before he ever held a weapon. His skills made him invaluable, yet his naivety about the realities of war sometimes put him at odds with Keshrin's pragmatism. Lieutenant Morish, seasoned and cynical, bore the scars of past battles on both his body and soul. He had seen friends perish and had once trusted in the infallibility of the Collective, only to have that faith shattered in the blood-soaked fields of distant planets. As they made their descent, the air grew thick with tension, each soldier bracing for the chaos that awaited them. The Luthor Collective was known for its relentless conquest, moving from one planet to another with precision and brutality. Their ships, sleek and advanced, were feared across the galaxy. Each victory came with a price, though, as they often left worlds barren and lifeless. The Collective thrived on the spoils of war, integrating conquered technology into their own. They had scouted Earth, assessing its weaknesses and assuming that humanity's primitive state would make the invasion a simple task. However, as the ships pierced the clouds, the reality of their underestimation began to unfold. As they landed, the beautiful yet treacherous environment of Earth revealed itself. Lush forests loomed ahead, filled with potential ambush points. The varied landscapes posed challenges that they had not anticipated. The terrain was alive, pulsing with a heartbeat that resonated through their feet. Keshrin led his squad forward, their advanced scanners tracking human movements. The terrain shifted from urban sprawl to dense woods, each step feeling like they were walking into a carefully orchestrated ambush. The trees twisted unnaturally in the wind, obstructing their sight, while the ground seemed almost sentient. Small skirmishes erupted around the landing zone as soon as they touched down, each explosion resonating with the uncanny sense that Earth was preparing traps at every turn. Keshrin remembered the old saying, "The terrain is the true enemy." Each Luthor soldier was on edge, their eyes scanning the surroundings with heightened wariness. Sergeant Lieutenant Morish, report, Keshrin commanded as Morish hissed through his comms. "The readings are off, Keshrin. We haven't encountered any significant human force. These traps, they can't be just their doing. It doesn't matter what's behind it. Stay sharp and keep moving," he snapped, his gaze fixed on the tree-line. He recognized the signs of fear in Mirage's voice, the pressure was building. They pressed on, the crunch of leaves and debris echoing underfoot. The human resistance felt alarmingly sparse, too sparse. Each time they anticipated an ambush, it came from an unexpected angle. Keshrin crouched behind a rock, signaling his men to halt. The air thickened, heavy with anticipation. "Contact left," someone shouted, but it was too late. The ground erupted beneath two Luthor soldiers, launching them into the trees. Fire! Take them down! Keshran barked, returning fire into the trees, but the drones moved too fast. One by one, they targeted the Luthor, shredding through their armor before disappearing back into the canopy. Mirage cursed under his breath, his plasma rifle firing wildly into the forest. These aren't regular humans, they've integrated their weapons into A deafening crack split the air as a massive tree groaned and toppled forward, slamming into their rear guard. Screams echoed over the comms as soldiers scrambled to get free, but more traps went off, hidden explosives buried in the earth. Tun's comm unit flickered to life with the crackling voice of command. All units, pull back. We're encountering resistance more than anticipated. Regroup at LZ Theta. Keshran grimaced. Retreat. That word never sat well with him. But as he looked around at his squad, scattered and dwindling in number, he realized they were being herded, not by superior weapons, but by a planet itself that refused to submit. Move! Fall back to the landing zone. Keshran barked. He felt the vibrations in the ground intensify with each step, as if Earth itself were rejecting their presence. The squad broke through the forest line, racing across the open field that separated them from the LZ. But just as they neared safety, a deep rumble shook the earth. The ground beneath them cracked open, a massive fissure splitting the field in two. Soldiers tumbled into the chasm, swallowed by the land itself. Keshran skidded to a stop, barely avoiding the edge. His eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't just war, it was something far worse. They hadn't invaded a defenseless planet, they had awakened a sleeping giant, and it was fighting back. Back at the landing zone, chaos reigned. Luthor soldiers scrambled to regroup, the once organized deployment now a mess of scattered units. The sleek drop ship stood in stark contrast to the crude human defenses, but that didn't matter. The Earth itself had become the enemy. Sergeant Keshran. What the hell is happening? A gruff voice demanded over the comms as Keshran and the survivors of his squad finally reached the LZ. It's not just the humans, Keshran replied, out of breath. The ground, the trees, it's like they're fighting us every step we take. It's a trap. Captain Vorshek stepped forward, his eyes scanning the horizon. Are you telling me this planet is? I'm telling you the humans have weaponized their environment, Keshran cut him off. Everywhere we go, the terrain shifts. It's not natural. Vorshek narrowed his eyes. That's impossible. No species could control a planet like that. I wouldn't be so sure, Captain Morish muttered, barely limping from a shrapnel wound. Their drones, the traps, they're too coordinated. It's like the planet's alive. Vorshek didn't respond immediately. He stared out at the distant tree line, where strange low-frequency tremors shook the earth. Without warning, the ground beneath their feet vibrated again, harder this time, as if the very core of Earth was responding to their presence. Captain, we need to evacuate now. This isn't a battle we can win. Before Vorshek could answer, a series of explosions erupted along the perimeter of the LZ. Human forces were closing in. Their figures darted between the shadows, their movements fast and unpredictable, small groups under-equipped by Luthor standards, but they fought with a ferocity that stunned even the battle-hardened aliens. They're using the terrain to mask their movements, a nearby soldier shouted. Plasma fire rained down toward the humans, but it was erratic, unfocused. The humans weren't staying still long enough to be targeted, constantly weaving through the shifting landscape. Keshran gritted his teeth. Every instinct told him to fight, to push back, but the ground itself betrayed them at every turn. A group of Luthor soldiers took position behind a rock formation, only for it to crumble without warning, collapsing onto them. These humans, Keshran growled, they're not just defending Earth, they've made it a weapon. Vorshek turned to him. Prepare the remaining forces for evacuation. This planet, it's a death trap. Keshran nodded, but as he moved to rally the troops, he felt the ground shift again beneath his boots. The earth groaned with an almost sentient malice, like a beast stirring from slumber. He knew they didn't have much time. As human forces pressed the attack, the sky overhead darkened. Clouds gathered unnaturally fast, swirling with intensity. Thunder rumbled, and rain began to fall in thick, heavy sheets, turning the ground to slick mud. The humans had predicted even this. They fought in sync with the planet, using every change in the environment to their advantage. One by one, the Luthor soldiers fell, not to superior weapons, but to the combined onslaught of human ingenuity and Earth's wrath. Keshran caught sight of a lone human soldier in the chaos, his rifle trained on the Luthor. The human locked eyes with him for a brief moment, and in that instant, Keshran realized something chilling. The humans weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. The evacuation order came too late. By the time the drop ships lifted off, the Luthor forces were in complete disarray. Earth had turned its fury against them, and the human resistance. He had to find a way to reach the humans, to bridge the gap that separated them. Perhaps there was a way to coexist, to understand their struggles. With that thought in mind, he pressed on, seeking a way through the chaos and destruction, determined to uncover the truth about Earth and its defenders. Somewhere in the depths of the battlefield, the sound of a familiar voice broke through the noise. Keshran. Over here. Morish's voice called, urging him toward a gathering of soldiers. Keshran charged through the debris, heart pounding, every instinct telling him to fight. Yet as he pushed through, he realized it wasn't just about fighting anymore. With each step, he found the strength to forge a new path, one that embraced understanding rather than conquest, a connection instead of conflict. He had to find a way to speak with the humans, to bring them together, not as enemies but as survivors on the same Earth. As the storm of battle raged on, the ground itself shuddered, echoing the weight of their choices. Would they be conquerors or companions? Would they fight until the last breath or find common ground? The answer lay within the ruins of war, hidden beneath the scars of the Earth, waiting to be uncovered. As Keshran pushed through the chaos, he felt the raw power of the planet coursing through the ground. Each tremor reminded him that they were intruders in a world that fought back with every ounce of its being. The shifting earth beneath him was no mere terrain, it was a living organism reacting to the violence that had been unleashed upon it. Reaching Morish, who was rallying the remaining soldiers, Keshran felt a surge of determination. "We need to establish communication with the humans," he shouted, urgency fueling his words. "If we continue this fight, we'll only lose more men, both Luthor and human." Morish's brow furrowed in disbelief, the echoes of explosions punctuating his skepticism. "Are you serious? We're in the middle of a battle, Keshran. We need to fight back. Fighting is only making it worse. Look around you. The planet is defending itself against us. We've underestimated their connection to this place, and we're losing because of it. Keshrin felt the gravity of his words as they hung in the air. The humans, fighting for their home, had a power that transcended weaponry. They were a symbiotic part of their world, and Keshrin had to find a way to convey that understanding to Morish and the others. Listen. Keshrin insisted, urgency burning in his eyes. If we don't reach out, we risk annihilation. We've already seen how resourceful they are. They can turn the environment into their weapon. But what if we could turn that around? What if we could find common ground? Morish hesitated, glancing at the soldiers around him. They were battered, weary, and desperate for leadership. The uncertainty hung heavy in the air. And how do you propose we do that? He asked, skepticism lacing his tone. We need to create a truce, a temporary ceasefire. If we can stop the violence long enough to establish communication, we might be able to negotiate. Keshrin felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he articulated his thoughts. We need to show them we're not their enemy. We're not here to destroy their world. Vorshek emerged from the shadows, his expression grave. You're suggesting we negotiate with the enemy, Sergeant? They've been attacking us mercilessly. They're fighting for their lives. Keshrin shot back, frustration mounting. We're the invaders here. We're the ones who brought this chaos to their world. If we don't acknowledge that, we'll all be wiped out. As he spoke, the ground shuddered again, a reminder of the planet's anger and the urgency of their situation. The battle raged around them, but the notion of diplomacy stirred a flicker of hope in the hearts of the soldiers. All right, Morish said slowly, his voice steadying. But if we're going to try this, we do it right. We'll need a secure location to establish contact, away from the chaos. We'll send someone in first, someone who can approach them without escalating the situation. Keshrin nodded. I'll go. Are you sure? Morish frowned, concern flashing in his eyes. It could be a trap. We have no idea how they'll respond. I understand the risks, Keshrin replied, determination surging through him. But we have to try. We need to be the bridge between our worlds, or we'll perish together in this madness. With a heavy heart, Morish finally nodded. Then it's settled. We'll create a distraction to give you a window to approach them. The plan was quickly formulated. As the Luthor soldiers prepared to execute their ruse, Keshrin felt a sense of purpose wash over him. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about forging a new path. When the time came, the air crackled with tension. Luthor forces split into two groups. One would engage the humans, drawing their attention, while Keshrin would slip away to find a means of establishing contact. As explosions illuminated the night, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield, Keshrin moved through the chaos, his heart pounding with every step. He could hear the cries of soldiers on both sides, the roar of weapons and the rumble of the earth vibrating beneath him. After what felt like an eternity, he reached a small clearing at the edge of the forest, a location that offered a view of the battlefield but remained concealed from the immediate chaos. Here, he felt the weight of the world pressing upon him. This was the moment of truth. Taking a deep breath, he activated a small communication device, designed for low-frequency signals. He knew it might not work, but it was worth a shot. The device flickered to life, transmitting a signal meant to reach the nearby human forces. Hello! Keshrin shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. This is Sergeant Keshrin of the Luthor Collective. I am here to negotiate a ceasefire. We do not wish to continue this fight. We seek understanding. For a moment, silence reigned. The only sound was the distant echo of battle. He strained his ears, hoping to catch any sign of a response. Then, the silence broke. Keshrin, this is Commander Jaden of the Terran Defense Forces. State your intentions clearly. The voice crackled through the device, sharp and authoritative. Keshrin felt a surge of relief. Commander Jaden, I'm here to propose a ceasefire. We are not here to destroy your world. We were misled about the nature of our mission. We wish to find a way to coexist. Why should we trust you? Jaden's voice was laced with suspicion. Your forces have already attacked our cities, destroyed our homes, and killed our people. I understand your anger, and you have every right to it, Keshrin replied earnestly. But continuing this conflict will only lead to more destruction for both sides. Earth is a powerful ally, not an enemy. We have seen your resilience and the strength of your connection to this land. Together, we can find a way to end this bloodshed. Why should I believe you? Jaden countered, the tension palpable in his voice. You're asking us to trust the very beings who invaded our home. Keshrin hesitated, searching for the right words. I am a soldier, just like you. I was raised to fight, but I now see that this war is futile. The planet is reacting to our violence, and we are all caught in the middle. I am willing to lay down my weapons to prove our sincerity. We can come together and find a solution, an alliance instead of annihilation. The air crackled with tension as Jaden considered his words. If you're truly willing to stand down, I will arrange for a ceasefire on our side. But know this, if you betray that trust, we will not hesitate to defend our home. Understood, Keshrin replied, relief washing over him. We will both stand down and seek a way to discuss terms. I will return to my people, and we will cease all hostilities. With the agreement in place, Keshrin turned back toward the chaos. The battle was still raging, but now, there was a flicker of hope, a possibility for peace. He quickly made his way back to his squad, heart racing as he relayed the news. Captain! We have a ceasefire, he shouted, barely managing to be heard over the cacophony. What? Morish's eyes widened in disbelief. You're telling me we're going to stop fighting? Yes. We have a chance to negotiate. We can. Before he could finish, the ground shook violently, a reminder of the planet's fury, and the sky darkened as storm clouds gathered above. Keshrin, I don't know if this is the right time, Morish began, but Keshrin interrupted him. It doesn't matter. We've taken the first step toward understanding. Now we must show them that we can be allies instead of enemies. As the Luthor forces began to withdraw, human soldiers also paused, confusion etched on their faces. The sound of weapons slowly faded, replaced by the distant rumble of thunder. The air was thick with tension, and Keshrin could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. We need to make this clear, Morish said, his voice steady. If we're going to stand down, we need to ensure that both sides understand this is a true ceasefire. Agreed, Keshrin said. He approached the closest group of human soldiers, hands raised to show he bore no weapon. We come in peace, he called out, his voice echoing across the field. We seek to end the fighting. The humans exchanged wary glances, weapons still trained on the Luthor soldiers. One stepped forward, a woman with dark hair and fierce determination in her eyes. "And how do we know you're not playing us for fools?" she challenged. "Because we've lost too much already," Keshrin replied earnestly. "We do not wish to see any more lives lost. We have agreed to negotiate a ceasefire, to come together as allies, not foes." The woman nodded slowly, processing his words. "Then let's talk," she said cautiously. "But make no mistake, if you try anything, we will respond with force." As the storm continued to brew above, the atmosphere shifted. The battle-scarred landscape bore witness to a moment of unprecedented possibility. Luther and human soldiers stood on opposite sides, their eyes locked in a tense standoff, each unsure of what this new development meant. As Keshrin moved back to join Morish and the others, he felt a surge of hope. Perhaps they could find a way to coexist, to forge a new destiny on this planet that had become a battlefield. The storms above roared with intensity, but down below, there was a flicker of understanding igniting amidst the ashes of war. Gathering in a neutral zone, the leaders of both sides exchanged wary glances. Morish stood at the forefront of the Luther representatives, while Commander Jaden led the human forces. The tension was palpable as they faced one another, aware that the fate of their peoples hung in the balance. "I'm glad we could come together," Jaden began, his voice steady. "But let's not mistake this moment for peace. This is a fragile truce, and we must tread carefully." Morish nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. "We have no intention of betraying this agreement. We've seen the consequences of our actions, and we seek to find a way forward. We can no longer afford this war." As the discussion continued, both sides shared their stories, revealing the truth behind their motivations. The Luthers spoke of their struggles, the deception that had led them to invade Earth. The humans recounted the devastation wrought upon their homes, the loss of loved ones, and the relentless fight to protect their world. Slowly, understanding began to blossom amidst the tension. They shared their histories, recognizing the common threads that wove through their experiences. Keshrin felt the weight of his own past lifting as he listened to the stories of the humans, realizing that they were not so different after all. They were all survivors, brought together by the forces that had shaped their destinies. As the discussions deepened, they began to envision a future built on collaboration instead of conflict. Yet, even as hope took root, the storm clouds loomed overhead, a reminder that the path ahead would not be easy. The world around them was still healing from the scars of war, and the tumultuous earth beneath their feet mirrored the challenges they faced. As the leaders reached an agreement to establish a temporary peace, Keshrin felt a surge of determination. This was only the beginning, they would need to work tirelessly to forge a new alliance between their worlds. In the days that followed, as the ceasefire took hold, both sides worked to rebuild trust. Communication lines were established, allowing for dialogue and understanding. They shared resources, exchanging knowledge and culture as they learned from one another. In the heart of the war-torn land, they began to lay the groundwork for a new alliance, a partnership founded on the principles of respect and cooperation. The scars of battle were still fresh, but they slowly began to heal as both sides focused on what they could achieve together. Yet, deep down, Keshrin knew the path ahead would not be without obstacles. There would be those on both sides resistant to change, clinging to the pain of the past. But he remained steadfast in his belief that understanding could bridge the gap between them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the battlefield, Keshrin found himself standing at the edge of the clearing where it all began. The air was thick with the scent of earth, a reminder of the battles fought and the lives lost. Keshrin, a familiar voice, called out, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Morish, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "I've been looking for you." "I needed a moment to reflect," Keshrin replied, turning to face his friend. "This is a new beginning, but it's still fragile. We must remain vigilant." Morish nodded, understanding the weight of their situation. "You've done well to bring us this far, but the journey ahead won't be easy. There are many who still harbor resentment." "I know," Keshrin said, determination glinting in his eyes. "But we must focus on the future, on building relationships instead of walls. If we can show them that we're willing to listen and learn, perhaps we can overcome that resentment." As they stood together, the sun casting long shadows across the land, a sense of hope blossomed within them. They were no longer just soldiers from opposing sides, they were architects of a new reality, bound by a shared purpose. In the days that followed, both Luther and human forces continued to meet, forging connections that would transcend the lines drawn by war. They shared their cultures, their histories, and slowly, they began to understand the depth of their shared experience. Through joint efforts, they began to address the environmental damage caused by their conflict, seeking ways to restore the land that had borne witness to their struggles. The echoes of destruction were replaced with the sounds of collaboration as they planted trees, cleaned up debris, and nurtured the earth they had once fought over. As seasons changed, so did the landscape of their relationship. The trust that had been forged amidst the ashes of war grew stronger with each passing day. Yet, beneath the surface, remnants of the past still lingered. There were those who clung to old grudges, unable to see the beauty of the new alliance. Rumors began to spread, whispers of dissent that threatened to undo the progress they had made. "Keshrin," Morish said one evening, a shadow of concern crossing his face. "I've heard whispers among the ranks, some are planning to undermine our efforts." Keshrin's heart sank. "We cannot let that happen. We've come too far to allow fear to derail our mission. We must confront this head-on." Together, they approached the leaders of both sides, calling for a gathering to address the growing unrest. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the assembly, Keshrin stood before them, resolute. "Brothers and sisters, we stand at a crossroads," he began, his voice strong and clear. "We have fought and bled for our respective homes, but we must now recognize the power of unity. Our past does not define our future, it is our actions today that will shape the world we leave behind." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Keshrin continued. "I understand the pain and loss we've all endured. But we must not let anger and hatred dictate our choices. Instead, let us build a legacy of understanding and cooperation. Together, we can heal not just the wounds of our peoples, but the very land we stand on." As his words echoed through the gathering, he could feel the weight of history pressing upon them. This was their moment to rise above the shadows of their past. "We've seen the potential of our alliance. We've witnessed the beauty of collaboration. If we allow fear to divide us, we will only perpetuate the cycle of violence. Let us embrace the path of unity, for together, we are stronger than we could ever be apart." The crowd fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Slowly, hands began to rise in support, warriors from both sides acknowledging the power of change. Morish stepped forward, a look of determination in his eyes. I stand with Keshran. We are the architects of our own destiny. Let us choose to be allies, not enemies. A resounding cheer erupted from the crowd, echoing across the battlefield that had once been a scene of devastation. In that moment, they forged a new pact, a commitment to work together toward a brighter future. As the days turned into weeks, the alliance flourished. Luther and human forces began joint training exercises, learning from each other's strengths and weaknesses. They developed shared strategies to protect their newfound home, combining their skills to safeguard the environment they had once fought over. Through the process, friendships blossomed, and understanding deepened. Keshran found himself forming bonds with human soldiers, sharing stories around the fire at night, exchanging laughter and dreams. But even as hope thrived, challenges still loomed on the horizon. Dissenters emerged from both sides, resentful of the peace that had been established. They spoke of betrayal, of alliances formed from weakness rather than strength. One night, as the stars twinkled above, a commotion erupted in the camp. Keshran and Morish rushed to the scene, their hearts racing. A group of dissenters had gathered, their voices raised in anger, demanding that the alliance be dismantled. "This is betrayal," one shouted, his face twisted with rage. "You would turn your back on your own people for the sake of these invaders?" Keshran stepped forward, heart pounding in his chest. "This is not betrayal, it is a chance for a better future. We've witnessed the horrors of war, and we must learn from them. You speak of peace while our brothers have died at their hands," another voice shouted, the crowd growing restless. "How can we trust those who invaded our land?" The tension thickened, and Keshran felt the weight of their anger bearing down on him. "I understand your pain, I feel it too," he said, his voice steady. "But we cannot let fear guide our actions. We must remember that we all share this planet, and together, we can ensure that no more lives are lost." "Enough." Morish's voice rang out, authoritative and commanding. "This is not the way forward. We cannot let hatred blind us to the possibility of change." As he spoke, a human soldier stepped forward, determination etched across her face. "We have suffered too, and we are not here to take your land or destroy your home. We are here to protect it. Together, we can stand against any threat, but only if we unite." The crowd began to quiet, uncertainty creeping in as they listened.